Hey NetSuite podcasters, I'm your host Kendall Fisher, and I'm so glad you tuned in to this episode of the NetSuite podcast because this is a big one. On this episode, we're sharing a very exciting announcement about Oracle NetSuite's huge increase in investment and focus on the nonprofit marketplace globally. I sat down with Oracle NetSuite Senior Director David Geilhufe and Senior Director of Social Impact Peggy Duvet to help break down the big ways NetSuite is moving forward to help nonprofit organizations amplify and accelerate their impact.
You're listening to the NetSuite podcast, where we discuss what's happening within NetSuite, why we're doing it, and where we're heading in the future. We'll dive into the details about the software and the people at NetSuite who are behind all the moving parts. We'll also feature customer growth stories, discussing the ups and downs of running a company and how one integrated system can help your business continue to scale.
Before we get into this big episode, I want to quickly thank our sponsors over at Hint. If you don't know about Hint yet, their brand is all about making everyday chores more enjoyable. It started when Kara Golden, Hint's founder, needed a way to drink more water, but wanted flavor without all those additives and sugars and sweeteners that come in most drinks. She created Hint Water, and I have to tell you, this is now my go-to drink every day. It has just a hint of flavor from real fruit essences and doesn't have any of those sugars or sweeteners added to it. But no need to listen to me. Check it out for yourself. You can go to hint.co/welcome to get 30% off your first purchase right now. Hi, Peggy and David. Thank you so much for being with us here on this episode of the NetSuite podcast. Lots of exciting stuff going on. So I just want to dive right into things. First and foremost, David, you've been with NetSuite since the start of the Social Impact program. Can you tell us how social impact has always been at the core of NetSuite's vision, like even from the very start?
Absolutely. So over 11 years ago, I started working with Evan, and Evan had always kind of had this vision for how nonprofits could use the NetSuite software. And, you know, kind of like any founder, he runs around and he goes and talks to all the customers. And, you know, the question he asked is, how do you achieve your business vision with NetSuite? Mm-hmm. And in the for-profit companies, you know, people talk a lot about revenue and profitability and things like that. And then when he would talk to the nonprofit organizations, they would talk about, oh, you know what? We fed this many kids. We saved this many lives. And he thought that there was something special about those metrics. Mm-hmm. And we needed to do something special for those nonprofit organizations. So from the very beginning, we really started looking at exactly how we could help people use the NetSuite software to achieve all these magical things that ERP software achieves for big businesses and guys that can, you know, quote, afford it.
Right, of course. And actually, you know, because this has always been part of our mission, you know, we've affected a lot of organizations that we'll get into in a little bit. But Peggy, can you explain then, if this has already been so great, where are we going? What does the future hold? And are we investing more than we did previously?
Absolutely. We're investing even much more. I think what's exciting since we've joined forces with Oracle is the fact that we are really looking at a scale that we could never have thought of before. Our mission remains the same. We're still in the business of accelerating the social impact of nonprofit globally through the power of our cloud technology. We have 3 core pillars: a software donation, a pro bono services, and a capacity building. But what we're most excited about is helping nonprofit of all size, leveraging NetSuite so they can spend more money towards their programs and less towards their back-end operations.
Okay, so I'm going to back up really quick. Can you just name those 3 pillars of social impact, of NetSuite social impact?
Absolutely. So the first one is suite donation.
Okay.
So it's a software donation where we basically offer a base for nonprofits to receive deep discounted offering off of the commercial prices.
Okay.
The second pillar is the Suite Pro Bono program, where we match our software social impact customers to NetSuite employees who give their time and expertise so our customers can better leverage our technology.
Okay.
And finally, our third pillar is a Suite Capacity, where we spend efforts building resources and educational tools so a nonprofit can really have a lifelong success on NetSuite, and even beyond NetSuite over the day-to-day operations for their operations.
Wow.
So one of the things that is so important about these programs is everybody gets scared with like ERP software. Nobody knows what that means
Right.
or what it even stands for.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to explain that to people that I used to work with in entertainment. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, ERP? You don't know what that means? But anyway.
So the nonprofit sector is exactly the same, right? And the acronym means nothing. What it means is I can manage my money better.
Right.
I can track inventory going back and forth. We had a big international relief organization that was tracking the vaccines that they shipped through Africa.
Wow.
And ERP allowed them to do that more effectively and bigger and better and everything like that. But here's the thing. Small organizations look at the big nonprofits, the guys with multi-million-dollar budgets, and they say, oh, wow, you can ship your vaccines through Africa, but I could never do that. I could never get that same technology. So these 3 pillars are really designed to make sure that every nonprofit, regardless of their size, has the support to go achieve all those magical outcomes, the reason that all these ERP companies exist and all these software companies exist.
Now, you've said no matter their size. What about their location? Does it matter where they're located? Are we global?
Our program is truly global, and I'll have to say, before joining Oracle NetSuite, I was myself the executive director of a small nonprofit. And I can't even tell you how downing it is to think of technology for your operations. You don't know where to go. You don't know what resources to take. And even if you pick a technology, building that capacity around that technology is very difficult. So what inspired me to join Oracle NetSuite and what inspires me to do the job we do is we're truly able to not only help nonprofits of all sizes, even the smaller guys, but as well help them build the literacy, the tech literacy, so they can be better in the operations.
No matter where they are.
No matter where they are, that's right.
Well, and Peggy, you've had a team in Manila for a long time.
That's right, yes. So over the last 2 years, we've welcomed 200 nonprofits leveraging NetSuite for the mission. Wow. And it goes from very small ones to large ones. For example, the Philippine Council for NGO Certification. It's a nonprofit that certifies organizations that want to get the 501c3. Well, they also have to manage the operations, right?
Right.
So in a sense, they've decided to basically leverage NetSuite in order to not worry about how do they collect the data, how do they report the data, and in a manner so they can take a strategic decision more effectively.
Right. Yeah.
I think the thing about joining Oracle that has been so exciting for Peggy and I and the whole team has been, we've always been global,
right?
And we're very conscious not to open the program just to the U.S., right? But most of our folks are based in the U.S. Most of our relationships are with U.S. NGOs. But that program in the Philippines was the first time we really started bringing people together in Manila. So NGOs in Manila could talk to one another about their back office operations. They could access pro bono. They could access all these pillars, right? They access the software. They access the volunteer help or the pro bono help. They access the capacity services, and then they get their operations running. Now with Oracle scale, it's not just the Philippines we're looking at. We're looking at all kinds of places in EMEA and Africa and Latin America, and we actually have the capability to reach all those places, which is truly amazing.
It is, and we've talked a lot on this podcast about our global growth and about how we're, leveraging this investment from Oracle across the globe, really more so than we ever have before. I mean, we've always been global, like you said, but this is allowing us to do it in a bigger way. So what's something, David, that we've learned over the last 10 years that's helped kind of influence these changes that we're making today?
Sure. So there's kind of 2 answers to this story.
Okay.
The first answer is kind of what everybody has learned about software donations. And that is, if you give something away to somebody for free, no matter how cool it is, you generally don't get the outcome you want. And people don't take it seriously. They don't understand the complexity. This is usually termed as free as in kittens or free as in beer. ERP software is free as in kittens. You got to take care of the kitten.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And so what we learned there is okay, we got to go take care of the kitten. We got to help the nonprofits, no matter what their size, use the software to go achieve all these magical results. So we actually started from the very beginning with pro bono. But then we started going through the process of ERP and learning a lot of unique things about how nonprofits use NetSuite specifically.
Okay.
And the one thing we learned that was most important, and oh, by the way, this is the same thing the company has learned across 40,000 customers, is getting somebody up and running on day one and recognizing value from the software is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So you might have heard in the broader company, we have Suite Success, right? And the whole Suite Success program is all about getting somebody up and running and realizing value on day one.
Bite small, chew quick.
Bite small, chew quick. It's not just another implementation methodology. I mean, this is really transformative in both our company, and I think it's transformative in the ERP industry. So now take that to nonprofits.
Okay.
How do we get even the smallest guy up and running quick? Well, you get it through an activation. And that's the big announcement that we're bringing to the donation is not only are we going to give you the software, we're going to get you up and running on the software with the same people that are doing the commercial implementations, with the same service.
Yeah.
And we're going to do that for everyone that gets a base donation, whether they're in the US or globally.
Yes. Wow.
That's big news.
Quicker, easier, day one. Like we're starting off the bat, like we're going for it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And more importantly, you're not going to have to figure out it yourself.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
We're going to be there with you every single step of the way, which then gets into our other pillars of pro bono and capacity. We're going to be with you every step of the way for the next 20, 30, 50 years.
Yeah. Actually, I'm glad you brought up the pro bono side of things because there's a lot to that. Can you dive into what we've been doing and how this is changing moving forward, one of you?
Sure. So pro bono is one of those kind of interesting areas where at the beginning we had to give nonprofits help, right?
Okay.
So what we ended up doing is we said, okay, well, we got some employees that are really smart. Let's go match them with nonprofits. And then, over time that kind of evolved. And so we stopped being kind of ad hoc about it, and we started defining these very specific projects. Okay, we're going to help you build your budget. We're going to help you do your budget versus actual inside of NetSuite. And this is really critical to a nonprofit because they have to tell their donors exactly where they spent all their money, right?
Right.
So we have 20 of these project types. And then Peggy started taking this on further to build-a-thons and hackathons. You want to talk about those?
Absolutely. I think what was exciting for me when I was thinking of pro bono, it's not just about, hey, adapt to technology on day one, which I'm so thrilled that David made the announcement because we're really going to go big. But as well, it's about once you pass that day one, then what do you do and how do you scale with that?
Right.
So, for example, when we do a build-a-thon, we started 2 of them. Now we're going to do 10 of them globally just this year
So what
alone,
is a
right?
build-a-thon?
Yeah.
So think a build-a-thon is hands-on employees that have NetSuite expertise or business expertise, as a matter of fact, right? That are going to be matched with our social impact customers, and they're going to literally hack into your life system for 4 to 6 hours and help you. So when you leave out of the build-a-thon, your solution is right there and implemented.
Wow.
So if you think, if you're with Texas Global, there's one of the leaders globally, right, in building the technology product philanthropy around the world. So Texas Global was at one of our build-a-thon a few months ago. La Chica, after solely, 6 hours, came to us as like, Peggy, do you realize that you save 20 to 30 hours a month?
Wow.
For me to be able to basically reconcile a grant application.
Wow.
20 to 30 hours a month.
And that's what you figured out during this build-a-thon?
Thanks to our NetSuite employees that came and spanned.
Wow.
And what we started playing around this concept is not just, not only we can help them with their live dashboard or metrics, whatever it may be that's being worked on, but we're also starting to also think about training. So let's spend maybe a couple hours before and train nonprofit customers, and then at the end we all come together and learn from each other.
Got it.
Because remember, if we're truly about bringing the scale we're about, it's not just about us, it's about the community coming together.
Of course.
So it's about our nonprofit customers coming together and sharing the best practices.
And what was interesting about the Build-a-thon is we actually started the hackathon before this. And so the hackathon is the Hackathon for Good. We do this at Sweet World every year.
Right.
We bring a couple of nonprofits into a room. We bring in 100 or more employees, NetSuite employees, partners, customers. So anybody who goes to Sweet World can actually just sign up. They can come into this room. We do it the first day of the conference, and they can go work with 2 nonprofits for a full day.
Wow.
And they're usually working on really hard problems, and they're complicated problems, and they're interesting problems. And sometimes, the teams come up with things that are super crazy and never get implemented. And sometimes they come up with stuff that is totally doable.
Yeah.
The nonprofit always learns something.
Right.
The participants always have a great time. But after that program, so we've run this for 3-4 years. Kiva was one of our first guys, and they brought in a whole international set. We had Brightpoint Health come in to do an integration thing. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But what we realized is a lot of people just need to shave 20 hours a month out, like TechSoup. And that's what the Build-a-thon does.
So can you explain to me, like, give me 1 or 2 examples of, like, stuff that they'd be working on during these Build-a-thons or hackathons, like challenges that they were facing?
So I think one of the challenges that is super common is nonprofits always have complex IT systems, right? So people kind of forget, right? If you manufacture widgets, it's a fairly straightforward process.
Yeah.
But if you're Brightpoint Health and you're running a bunch of community clinics and you have medical issues and you have billing and you have compliance and you have all this stuff, there's multiple systems that you have to use. So one of the core pieces of that Brightpoint Health hackathon was actually integrating the systems correctly.
So they could speak to each other.
So they could speak to one another.
Got it.
And that's something that, usually your nonprofit staff is not experts in.
Right.
But if I bring 100 employees and partners and customers in,
who have been doing this every day of their life.
Exactly. Suddenly it becomes super, super easy.
Got it.
On the Build-a-thon, it's generally a lot easier, right? It's like, hey, let me take you through my day.
Okay.
And then somebody says, hey, have you ever used a saved search to do that? Or maybe I'll just type this in for you.
Got it.
And then they're like, oh, man, now it's done. I didn't have to figure it out. You wrote something that's called SQL in there, and I still have no idea what you did, but it's got me exactly what I need, and now I saved my time.
And this is for utilizing NetSuite.
That's right.
All around utilizing NetSuite.
A global pro bono manager, Deborah Askanez, was also had a brilliant format where at the end of the Build-a-thon, the nonprofit customers actually share what they've learned.
Wow.
Because remember, it's a true learning.
Right.
It's a learning about for employees, for customers.
Right.
So by sharing kind of the
yeah.
solution that we build, then other nonprofits like, oh my God, we could do that as well.
Yeah.
So it's really about bringing it together. And I think one thing we've learned as well as we were working in the Philippines really demonstrated to us that it's all about community. At the end of the day, if we help each other with technology, we'll do better. So one of the other things that we're super excited to launch is the fact that we'll be launching Social Impact Online Community and Knowledge Center.
Oh, wow.
So a truly global effort that will bring everybody. So it doesn't matter if you're in the Philippines. It doesn't matter if you're a small nonprofit in Valero or wherever you may be. You'll be able to not only share best practices among each other, but also get a lot of knowledge from a NetSuite employee all around the world.
Which American company started with a guy in a garage, was featured on Shark Tank, and now has over 1 million customers? Hint, they're reducing crime in neighborhoods everywhere. Here's Ring Video Doorbell founder Jamie Siminoff with his secret to success.
It's true. In just a few years, we've had huge growth. We've hired hundreds of people, expanded our warehouse, and we're shipping millions of units a year, all while making sure our customers are happy. I've had lots of things to worry about, but I never worry about our finance and accounting because we use NetSuite from Oracle. From the beginning, NetSuite let me see what's going on with my business in real time, from revenues to expenses, customers and orders, even HR. I run my business from a dashboard right on my phone. NetSuite has been my business management system from 10 to a team of over 1,000, and NetSuite will be my choice as we continue to innovate and grow.
Go to netsuite.com/ring to see how Jamie scaled his business. You'll also get our free guide titled Overcoming Your 5 Obstacles to Growth. That's netsuite.com/ring for your free guide and the story of a great American company. netsuite.com/ring.
Going back a little bit to the pro bono stuff, I kind of want to touch on this a little bit more. So moving forward, we're still going to be doing what we've been doing, just better. How are we also going to help our nonprofits that we work with outside of NetSuite?
So this is the other thing we learned in 10 years of these volunteers working with these nonprofits.
Okay.
We learned that they could help with all kinds of stuff beyond NetSuite, right?
Okay.
So we talked about the Build-a-thon, the hackathon. It's all about using NetSuite,
yeah.
right? But here's the thing. Building a budget is not actually really about NetSuite. Oh, what are your cost centers? How does that work?
Right.
Building a strategy is not about NetSuite. We have this great software that allows you to run multiple subsidiaries in one system.
Yeah.
Highly technical, really not that exciting.
Right.
But in the nonprofit sector, one of the big strategies that's happening right now is people are thinking about building different companies inside their nonprofit structure that all interrelate.
Yeah.
So it's something, the guys, so a big company, you hear about, they put their profits in the Cayman Islands or something like that, right? Corporations have been doing that forever.
Right.
Nonprofits are starting to look at this because it makes them more efficient.
Got it.
It allows them to collect money and put it in the right place. Okay, that has a little bit to do with NetSuite, but you know what? We have brilliant executives that can help you with that strategy regardless of the technology. We have brilliant marketing folks. I know somebody who's really good at podcasts, and they can help with communications.
Wow.
So the big announcement for Pro Bono right now is we're expanding beyond just doing NetSuite skills to anything that our Pro Bono employees can offer nonprofits. But it's not just there. So in the Build-a-thon, we learned that, if we bring in our partners and customers, they add a huge amount of value.
Right.
Well, we're going to do that in the broader Pro Bono program too.
Oh my gosh.
So our employees, our partners, and our customers can help with marketing or strategy or, whatever.
Right. More of that community building, more of that coming together. And, Peggy, it's funny because earlier you said an interesting quote, which was, if we help each other, we can better our nonprofits. I'm just going to tell everybody that's listening right now, if we help each other in general every day, we will have a better world. So just remember that. But I love that this community building fact, is this just for smaller nonprofits, or are we doing this with larger nonprofits too? Because obviously when you think of a larger nonprofit, you're like, they're succeeding and they're doing everything great, but that's not always the case, right?
No, it's absolutely for nonprofits of all size.
Okay, great.
Because at the end of the day, we all share same bottlenecks, issues, right? So there's a lot that small nonprofits could learn from larger ones and vice versa. And I think also the localization aspect, we wanted it to be truly open to all. And we'll see where kind of the groups will come together and will facilitate what is right. But at the end of the day, we truly believe that it's a global movement.
Okay.
And it's a movement that can support each other. And at the end, what do we want? We want to make sure that those organizations can focus on their programs, right?
Right.
And not worry about the technology and back-end operation.
One of the things people don't realize about our programs, right? We have 1,200 nonprofits, right?
Yeah.
We have some of the biggest nonprofits on the planet that use NetSuite. And yeah, we're basically a, IT enterprise provider for them.
Right.
But we also have, 2 people who are college students with a great idea who are using the system to kind of get their nonprofit started. And that's the exact same technology.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta start with the right systems in place from the very. It doesn't matter if you're, however many millions of dollars you're at, or if you're, like you said, 2 college students. No matter what, you got to have the right systems in place.
And no matter what, you have to report your financials.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you have to report it to the dime. So it doesn't matter
We've
if you're
talked
one
about that,
volunteer, right?
You said if you buy that one piece of gum, you have to track it.
So right. And we don't want to differentiate. It's not because you may have a $20,000 US dollar budget, or a couple of millions, or 20 or 50 million.
Right.
At the end, everything will be accessible to all.
Right.
And I can tell you how excited I am that we can actually support all those small nonprofits and initiatives, because they often feel like they don't have access to that.
Right.
Or they often will jump on the free technology but not have the capacity.
Yeah.
So why do I do the job I do is because we were truly building capacity.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because you mentioned it earlier, and I want to dive deeper into that. What are we doing to build this kind of online community where nonprofits can come together? What is this all about?
Well, you're going to find out very soon.
Yeah, how are we building capacity?
Well, I think David already mentioned it, right? Building capacity comes in many, many forms. It's just not one vehicle. There's many ways to build capacity. Pro Bono is a big one from us. But also, we want to also bridge the gap between the online and offline space.
Right.
Why do we want to certainly launch our online space? Is because, as you know, we have a lot of global nonprofits. Around 40% of our portfolio are international charities all around the world of all size. So we want them to be able to connect with like-minded organizations regardless of their location.
Got it.
So this is when the online community is important. But we don't want it to just be a social impact online community. We want it to be a knowledge space, a knowledge center where they can come and share best practices, learn from each other, and start supporting each other potentially, right? So imagine you have nonprofit charities that have been on NetSuite for many, many years. You have NetSuite employees that have either NetSuite expertise or marketing or PR, whatever it may be, right? And then you have partners that have been supporting forever, coming all together. It doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is we're in the business of helping charities.
Got it.
Right?
So it's not
Succeed.
just for NetSuite. This online, community building platform isn't just for NetSuite. It's to kind of come together across all of your nonprofit operations, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So what we want to do is we want to be able to make sure that there's a home where people can come. Right? So come here. We want to make sure that they are going to have the right resources.
Okay.
NetSuite can be challenging at times, let's face it, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're smaller. So where do you get your answers? How can you get those best practices? And then finally, we're going to make sure that they connect around, get a deeper understanding on how it can help their mission.
Okay.
Right?
Wow. That's. I mean, this is really exciting stuff, especially for how much NetSuite is focused on giving back and social impact, not just for, I mean, it's been for 10 years, but I know Evan started this company with literally to help people fulfill their mission.
Exactly, and all of our customers, right? And I think that's been the most interesting thing for Peggy and I, right? What we get to do is we get to extend NetSuite's core mission to this special group of organizations that may have a little bit more struggle with using technology.
Yeah.
Or maybe some of them don't. Some of them are just as brilliant as everybody else, right? But they have much more complicated business process, and that's ultimately why we're bringing this capacity services and things like that. I think one of the things that happens in the nonprofit sector a lot is people think, nonprofits don't have any money, or they don't have the right people or whatnot. It's not actually really true. They actually have way more complicated problems to solve than a lot of commercial customers. And so one of the things I always tell people is if you take a $100 million corporation, they're going to operate at the same complexity level as a $10 million nonprofit.
Wow.
But $10 million nonprofit just doesn't have the same resources that $100 million corporation does. And so ultimately what we're doing with all of these pillars and all of these programs is leveling the playing field a little bit and making sure that the nonprofits can apply their donor funds in the most responsible way possible to deploy technology to improve their operations.
Right. And therefore, fuel their mission. Really.
Precisely.
So as we conclude a little bit, we've talked about how NetSuite over the last 10 years truly has really been giving back to nonprofits and has always done this. We're going to do more good better. But can we talk a little bit while we wrap things up about some of the companies that have spoken out and that we've truly influenced that is really, catering to all of this change?
Yeah, I mean, as I think of some of the nonprofit that inspires me on a day-to-day basis, I would think, about, for example, the Robbie Public Day Foundation, tiny, small foundation run by Patty. Patty unfortunately lost her son on September 21st, 2014 to the gun violence way during daytime. Very sad story.
Yeah.
She decided to basically leave the legacy of her son and start a foundation to take back gun violence from the street.
Okay, and what is that?
So what that means is she basically created a program that's a take-back program where they take guns away from the streets.
Okay.
And then they recycle those, and she recently made an art exposition out of the guns that were recycled. Very powerful story. So I think to date they've taken maybe 250 guns out of the streets in 2 counties in California. Very small. But the scale and the inspiration behind that is just a matter of time until she raised to the 1,001 million.
Right.
And Patty is just in the midst of implementing NetSuite. Very exciting. She's going through one of her capacity programs. But when I see a story like this, where you have a very small nonprofit, very little staff, that are putting the resources into NetSuite. So we want to spend as much time as we can to make sure she's up and running fast, and then she can focus on not only taking 250 guns off the street, but go to 1,000 and a million.
Right.
So that's a great story of the small nonprofit that we want to support.
And one of the things that reminds me of that I think is kind of interesting when you serve as many nonprofits as we do. Small and large organizations have the same kind of processes.
Okay.
So there was a nonprofit that has been with NetSuite longer than I have.
Wow.
Is that possible?
I know, believe it or not. And it's Food for the Hungry Canada.
Okay.
And they run child sponsorship operations, right? So you give them X dollars a month. They go out and package that money and then spend it in benefit of that specific child that you're sponsoring in Asia or in Africa or someplace else. And, so they'll dig wells, they'll do education, they'll do all these things. Well, we actually have a bunch of child sponsorship organizations. Some of the biggest nonprofits in the world that do child sponsorship use NetSuite to do it. But Food for the Hungry Canada is not the biggest child sponsorship organization in the country. And they were actually the first ones to go figure out, hey, you know what? NetSuite has some inventory capability. And this is where it gets, interesting and technical, but for any nonprofit business process, I'm sponsoring kids. I want to get 1 million kids out of poverty. You can deploy technology and allow somebody to use e-commerce to sponsor your child.
Yeah.
You can use the technology to get the letter from the kid to the donor quicker.
Gosh, yeah.
You can get all of these things that we do really amazing within our retail vertical. You can now transform the way child sponsorship is done. And we're looking to do that across as many nonprofit processes as we possibly can. Nice thing is, since every nonprofit on the globe can use NetSuite, we have an infinite number of those opportunities.
Yeah, truly, truly. I mean, those are just a few of what I'm sure are many incredible stories.
It's exciting because we're going to now have a NetSuite activation at no cost.
Wow.
Right? We're accelerating our pro bono. We're accelerating the connection through our 9 community and knowledge center. And at the end, we're increasing investment to make sure that all the nonprofits mobilize NetSuite to further meet the mission.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners are excited about it. We're thrilled to support them.
Yeah.
And we are committed more than ever.
And as we keep saying, and as I've heard you guys say, and I'm just going to repeat, no longer are nonprofits operating alone. They now have a community, and NetSuite's building that community, not only just for NetSuite, but we're building a community where nonprofits can come just for their operations in general, which I think is incredibly exciting. And I know our listeners will think so as well. Thank you, Peggy and David, so much for being with us here on this episode of the NetSuite podcast. And I'm sure we'll have you on again for plenty more to come.
Thank you, Kendall.
I hope I don't sound like I'm bragging here, but I really do love working for a company that loves giving back. And I can't wait to see how we continue helping to accelerate the mission of nonprofits globally. Visit netsuite.com/social impact to learn more, and I'll also put that link down in the description. Thank you so much to David and Peggy for joining us on this very important episode of the NetSuite podcast. It was all made possible by our sponsors at Hint and Ring. I'd also like to say thank you to our editors at Lampstand, the Oracle Production Studio, and of course, all you listeners for tuning in. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
You just listened to the NetSuite podcast. Be sure to tune in every week with more NetSuite developments, stories, and insights into the benefits of one integrated system to help you run your business.